All right, today we're tackling a huge topic, our planet's relationship with trash. We're going to break down the absolutely massive scale of the global waste crisis, really dig into its hidden costs, and then, and this is the important part, we're going to explore a clear, data-backed path toward a solution. So let's dive right in.
To really kick things off, just let this quote from the UN Secretary General sink in for a second. Every single minute. That's a garbage truck full of plastic hitting the ocean. That's the pace of the problem we're up against. This isn't some far-off issue, you know? It's happening right now, and that's exactly why it demands our full attention.
Okay, so let's get into the numbers. And look, I get it. These huge figures can sometimes make your eyes glaze over, but stick with me, because understanding the sheer scale of our global waste footprint is the first step.
So, where are we starting from? Well, back in 2020, humanity generated 2.1 billion tons of what's called municipal solid waste. That's just the everyday trash, you know? The stuff from our homes, our offices, our local businesses. It's a mind-boggling amount, but that year, that's just a snapshot.
But here's the thing. The real alarm bell isn't even that number itself. It's where we're headed. If we just keep on with a business-as-usual approach, that 2.1 billion is going to look like small potatoes pretty soon.
By 2050, that number is projected to hit this, a 70% increase in just 3 decades. According to the UNEP report we're looking at, this explosion is being driven by both more people and more economic growth. Think about that for a second. We're on track for our waste to grow even faster than our population.
But you know, this isn't just a numbers game. It's not just about the volume of trash. The real price we pay is so much bigger because our waste has all these hidden costs that hit our health, our climate, and, yeah, our wallets.
So to really get the costs, we've got to look at what's actually in our trash cans. Globally, the biggest chunk, at 44%, is organic waste. You know, food scraps, yard trimmings, that sort of thing. But what's really interesting is how different this looks depending on where you are. In lower-income countries, it's often over half organic waste. But in higher-income countries, it's the dry recyclables like paper and plastic that really dominate. Knowing this is totally key to finding the right fixes.
And that brings us to a really devastating human cost. I mean, open dumps and poorly managed waste, they're not just ugly, right? They are literally breeding grounds for disease. Pollutants get into our water, burning trash poisons our air, and the result? The sources we looked at estimate that somewhere between 400,000 and 1 million people die every single year from diseases directly tied to mismanaged waste.
Okay, now here's a connection that honestly blew my mind. Waste is a huge climate issue. For a long time, we thought the waste sector was only responsible for maybe 3% of greenhouse gases. But that's not the whole story. When you look at the entire life cycle, everything it takes to produce all the stuff we throw away, the picture changes. A lot. Get this, better waste management could cut down up to 1/4 of all global greenhouse gas emissions. That is massive.
So this all leads to this wild economic paradox. On the surface, just dumping trash in a big pile seems like the cheapest way to go, right? But when you start adding up all those hidden costs, the externalities, it's a completely different story. The healthcare bills, the climate damage, the lost resources, when you add it all up, doing nothing is by far the most expensive option for all of us.
So all of this brings us to a major crossroads. The next 20-some years, they're going to be absolutely decisive. The UNEP report doesn't just throw the problem at us. It actually lays out 3 very different futures based on the choices we make, starting today.
So, what we're going to do now is look at 3 distinct scenarios. First is waste management as usual, which is pretty much the path we're on now. The second is waste under control, an improvement, but still not perfect. And the third, the most ambitious one, is a true circular economy.
So let's just see what this actually looks like in terms of pure volume. Business as usual gets us to that shocking 3.8 billion tons. But look, with a waste under control plan, we could actually bend that curve down to 2.6 billion. And this is the amazing part. The circular economy path could literally bring our waste generation all the way back down to 2020 levels, even with more people and a bigger economy. That just shows you, this problem, it's solvable.
But honestly, this next chart is the real showstopper.
It's not about the tons of trash. It's about the dollars and cents, including all those hidden costs.
Following our current path will cost the global economy a staggering $640 billion a year. But the circular economy, it's not a cost, it's a gain.
a net gain of $108 billion a year. Let that sink in. The best thing for the planet is also the best thing for our wallets.
So, the big question is, how do we actually get there? How do we achieve this incredible economic and environmental win? Well, it means we have to stop just trying to clean up the mess, and instead, as the report says, we have to turn off the tap.
So let's be super clear on what a circular economy actually is. This is not just about having more blue bins, okay? It's not just better recycling. It's a total redesign of how we make and use things. It means creating products that are built to last, to be repaired, to be reused, so that all those valuable materials stay in circulation instead of ending up in a hole in the ground.
So, okay, what does that actually look like in the real world? It really comes down to these core ideas. It means when a company designs a product, they're already thinking about how it can be reused or repaired. It's about creating new ways to keep materials in use for as long as possible. And it's about finally decoupling our economic growth from using up the planet's finite resources.
All right, I know what you might be thinking. This all sounds fantastic on paper, but can anyone actually do it? Well, let's take a look at a city called Kitakyushu in Japan. This was an industrial city, and they decided we're going to become a zero-waste city. And through really meticulous sorting, composting, and getting everyone in the community on board, they slashed their daily waste per person to less than half a kilogram. It just goes to show you, this isn't some fantasy, it can be done.
So in the end, after all the charts, all the data, it really all boils down to one simple question. Our trash tells a story about us. It tells the story of our society, what we value and what we throw away. We can choose a story of spiraling costs and damage, or we can choose a story of innovation and a healthier planet. The story for 2050 hasn't been written yet, and it's up to us to decide what it's going to say.